Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back, people. We back in the building. We ain't going nowhere. Welcome to the Internal Magic podcast where, you know, everything is about the internal. We don't focus on anything else other than the internal. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, I'm telling you, if you're not getting results, you basically cosplaying. I'm just telling you like it is. You 52 faking yourself. So, you know, so like I said, leave them other channels alone. This is where you need to be. This is where you need to be at. We talk about all stuff spiritual over here. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just what it is, man. You know. So, but today, what do we have burning on the altar today? We have the incense is called Unlocked. We have the vanilla candle. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to know what type of results I'm getting from the candle, please Google it. Maybe you can try it and put it on yours and see what results you get from yours. Because let me tell you something, I'm seeing results. I'm just telling you, if you're really doing this work, you will see the results. I'm telling you, I am a living testimony of the results that I've been getting. It's just been mind blowing. So if you guys are not focused on the internal, trust me, all those rituals, all those prayers, ain't gonna work. And in fact, it might work against you. But we'll talk about that on another time. So also, yeah, chaos beings. We still got the hats popping on the Etsy site. Etsy, we got it's chaosbeing.etsy.com. Go and check it out. Support your boy. Support this channel. You know what I'm saying? Here at Internal Magic, you know, we doing the work over here. I only want the soldiers that's doing the work. If you faking, I'm sorry, it's not gonna work. Just continue go and looking at all those TikTok videos and Instagram videos, and I'm telling you, that's the type of spiritualist you're gonna be. But if you want the real deal, this is where it's at. This is where you start. This is where you begin. And I promise you, as a person who's seen results, you will too. I promise you. So today we're going to be talking about how can you tell if you are living in the fifth dimension? How can you tell? That's what I want to know. And I don't want to know based off of knowledge because most people, I see and I notice there's a difference between people who understands the knowledge, they can recite anything. And then there's another side of where people who experienced it, who has had major breakthroughs. And when I'm talking to people, I can always tell. If they are a spiritual person based off of just what they know versus what they experience. And I'm telling you, if you stay on this page, I can guarantee you results. I'm telling you. I am telling you. So, a lot of y'all think y'all living in the fifth dimension. No, you not. You still in the three. So there are people who believe humanity is moving into the fifth dimension. But what if the fifth dimension isn't somewhere you go? Because that's some of y'all think it's an actual place. Oh man, you got to get off that TikTok. Because what if something you become conscious enough to what if it's something that becomes conscious enough to experience? What if it's something that you become conscious of, right? Because maybe the question isn't, has the earth entered the fifth dimension? Maybe the real question is, has your consciousness changed enough for you to experience life differently? I'm telling you, that's how I know that you are getting breakthroughs. You getting results. Today we're going to explore the idea of fifth dimensional consciousness, not as a scientifically proven dimension that you physically travel to, but as a spiritual framework for understanding a shift in perception. I'm telling you, you got to do the work. And more importantly, how can you tell if how can you tell if you are actually living from it? First, what is the fifth dimension, right? In a lot of spiritual teachings, dimensions are sometimes used as metaphors for different levels of consciousness. Think of them as different operating systems. You can have two people standing in exactly the same room, experiencing exactly the same reality or the same event, while internally living completely different realities. That's possible, right? That's why when you ask, five people what happened that witnessed an event, they all have five different stories, five different perspectives, right? The other experiences, the other or one of them experiences opportunity, one sees rejection, the other sees redirection. One needs to control everything. The other understands what they can control and releases what they cannot control, right? The physical circumstances may be identical. The consciousness interpreting those circumstances is different. That's the framework we're using when we talk about the fifth dimension, right? We have five people. Like, for example, like it's me and my family, it's six of us, six kids, six different experiences, six different perspectives. And you would think all of us would have came out cookie cutter, but no. All of us have our different problems, issues, strengths, weaknesses, stories, from back in the day, right? Stories, you know. So it's all about how you're perceiving and what you're experiencing, you know, what's going on. All right. The third dimensional consciousness, right? Third dimensional consciousness, which is where we at right now. Right? The third dimension can symbolically represent consciousness dominated by the external world. Your identity comes primarily through things like, what do I own? What do people think about me? You care about what people think about you, huh? How successful do I appear? Got to be flashy. Who approves of me? Like, you worried about who like you? Who rejected me? Dang, your ego that small? Who has more than me? Dang, y'all in secret competitions with each other. That's the reason why y'all having problems. Y'all trying to one up each other. And most of the time, this happens in close circles, families, close friends, at work. Fake. Who has less? Y'all, I don't want to look like the broke one. You know what I'm saying? Everything becomes comparison, survival, competition, and external validation. We got to get y'all together. You know what I'm saying? But that's why you here, so we can work on our internal. The outside world determines the condition of the inside world. Someone praises you, you feel powerful. Oh shit, my boss love my work. So when criticizes you, you collapse. God damn. Something goes wrong according to plan, you trust life. Something goes according to plan. I'm sorry, you trust life. Something goes wrong, you believe everything is falling apart. Your internal state is consistently being controlled by external circumstances. You got to be a supreme being. You got to be internally, clean. Because I'm telling you, you got to do some shadow work. You got to fix that ego. You got to do something. Y'all saying y'all want to go to the new earth, right? You saying you want this 144,000 frequency, right? You say you want your rituals to be powerful. You say you want to manifest, but everything that you depend on comes from the external. We are internal beings over here. We don't worry about nothing that is coming, that is going on outside of us. We we have our own world on the inside of us. We laughing at like these jokes. Man, let me tell you something. Me and my brother, we chilling, we watching TV. I'm telling you, I guess I must have been like dazed off or some shit, man. And I just bust out laughing. You know what I'm saying? Because in my mind, I'm thinking about all this stuff, you know, spiritually, and then something came up funny, and I just bust out laughing. And then my brother looks at me like, he go, "Dang, you all up in your own world, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah." You know what I'm saying? Yes. You know, so that's how tapped in you got to be. Because trust me, man, everything is spiritual. It's all spiritual. I don't care what they try to tell you. Don't let them convince you of nothing else. Fourth dimensional consciousness. Hmm. You know, when you in that mode, something begins to change. You start questioning. That's how you know you're moving up. You know what I'm saying? You start questioning your beliefs, your conditioning, your relationships. That's why, man, once you start getting on this road, you're gonna see you ain't have nothing in common with that person you with, because you was choosing based off of unhealed wounds. You was choosing based off of trauma. As you begin to do this work, you like a snake. You start shedding all of that stuff. Now you start looking at the person on the next to you in bed like, wow, who are you? You know what I'm saying? What did I just do? Oh man, I'm telling you, man. We got to get it together. That's why, you know, we're gonna work on it. Wow. You know, you start looking at your childhood, your religion. You grew up in the church, huh? Okay. Your definition of success, your own identity, right? You start thinking, who am I? Hmm. If you ain't did that by now, well, you need to start back to step one. You begin to notice patterns. You begin to notice synchronicities. And not on top of that, they also start becoming meaningful. Listen, whenever I get a synchronicity, like if I see, let's say, for example, for me, according to my charts and the research from doing my internal work, not even research, but just going within, whenever a synchronicity hits, that lets me know which one of my spirit guides is trying to communicate with me when I see it. How tapped in are you with yours? When I see 1111, I know that's my higher self trying to communicate with me in that moment. When I see um uh when I see 333, I know that's my ancestor spirit trying to come through at that moment. Each number I know based off of my spirit team who is around, who's trying to communicate. Like I don't just see 555 and be thinking like, oh, it's a reset. You know what I'm saying? If that's the way you're looking at it, you it's time to upgrade. It's time to upgrade. I'm not saying that that's not what it means, but what I'm saying is a person who knows has a lot of knowledge of synchronicities is just going to take it that way. But if you're doing the internal work, when you see a 555, it's something completely different than the like knowledge or meaning of 555, the generic meaning. But 555 to me is something totally different when I see it. When I see that 808 and that 818, I know who's calling. When you see them, what do you see? Put it in the comments. You know what I'm saying? Put it in the comments. I bet not hear nobody stealing because I'm already starting to see people steal some sauce. Don't be stealing. Credit, give credit where it's due. Boy, I'm telling you, that's how you know they fake. Everybody talking about the internal process all of a sudden. All of a sudden. Before that, it was star seeds and all this other stuff. Now you got to go within. You got to go within. I'm telling you, man, they stealing. But it's all good though, man. I ain't even tripping. You know, it just lets me know that people are paying attention. So if you're paying attention, I need you to comment, like, or subscribe. Definitely subscribe because this is, I'm telling you, you're not going to get nobody else, nowhere else talking like this. Everybody else is on this generic, chat GPT, type of spirituality, you know, but they not coming from their power. You got to get your chakras in order. You know what I'm saying? Then you start getting interested in meditation, which happened to me. Consciousness. You interested in manifestations, you're interested in shadow work, astrology, spirituality, all of these things start to happen as you begin to be, move up into the fourth dimension through your consciousness. And when you do that, your reality is going to be different than everybody else's. You're going to be somewhere dangerous. And because you mentally are in the fourth dimension, it's going to have a different experience than somebody that's in the third. Happens all the time. So that's the benefits. You know, you realize there is more happening inside of me than previously understood, based, from the previous mind control that you've been in. But there is a trap here. You can become addicted to searching. Another reading, another sign. That's how y'all operate. Y'all don't see a sign. Oh, it don't work. It takes time, people. It takes time and work. And if you're not getting the results, that means that you need to continue to build up them reps. You got to build it up. It's like lifting weights, baby. You know what I'm saying? If you want to, you know what I'm saying? If you want this, and you doing them squats, girl, you're going to have to put in the work if you want to get what you're trying to get. That's just basically what it is. And like I said, I can tell who's doing the work based off the way they talk. They talk from experience and not from knowledge. I'm telling you based off from experience. I done went in and into my internal, and let me tell you something, boy, I'm not even gonna tell y'all. It was so unbelievable. Like, I can't even fathom, because, you know, you have, like, because most of us, when we come in, we want to, oh, yeah, I'm a Lyran, or I'm a star seed and this and that. But then when you have that one super breakthrough, you like, oh my God, you realize you were just operating in spiritual ego. And once you get that major breakthrough, you're going to see, oh my God, I wasn't that. I'm really this. So if you telling me, oh, I'm a Anunnaki, I want to know what experience that you went through that, and it ain't got to be scientific. It ain't got to make sense to everybody else. It just got to make sense to you. And the way you explain that story is going to tell me exactly what type of, if you are telling the truth or not. Because if you keep talking about knowledge, then I'm going to be like, nope, nope, try again. You ain't doing the work. That's spiritual ego. You still have to deal with your ego. The ego is slick. The ego is slicker than what you call the devil. You move this way, he gonna move over that way, but then he's gonna mirror, but he gonna make sure you get some personal gratification from it. Oh my God, I'm so high, I'm so this, I'm so that. Man, if I told y'all what I saw and what I experienced, I should be walking around here like like I'm God or something. But I just walk around regular, chilling, keeping my experience to myself, trying to internalize it, trying to make more sense of it, trying to get more information from it. That's what I'm doing. I'm not gonna come on here and spew it, and then the next thing you know, I'd have messed up my whole shit. So I can tell if you're a knowledge spiritualist, which is the ego, or if you're just a regular spiritualist and you practice internal work. because the way you speak is going to be completely different. Trust me, I'm telling you. Everybody else, I'm telling you, so many people in this community that have egos. So we're going to have to work on that. But they too can come here and get this knowledge because something you've been doing ain't been working up until this point. Now it's time to try something new. Welcome to the Internal Magic Podcast, baby. That's what this is all about. You're always chasing techniques. Another explanation. You keep looking for confirmation that you're awakening. Why? The fact that you are awakened is it. And then there's space in between different, breakthroughs, but you're still going through the process. It's like a long timeline, and you have, like, let's say 3 markers in between from here to here. That space in between is you doing the work to get to that next breakthrough. That's the way it works. And so that space in between, a lot of y'all get discouraged because you're not seeing the results that you want, but you're not realizing you're doing the work. You just have to be patient. That's just what it is. So eventually another door opens, and that door asks, can you stop searching long enough to actually become what you've learned? So you've learned all this stuff and you haven't applied it. You got 1,000 books, huh? You got all the spiritual teacher books. You know it backwards and forwards, but you have not applied any of it. I don't want to hear what Bobby said, what Panic said, what Dr. Blair said, what Dr. York said. I don't want to hear that. I want to know from your internal what you experienced and explain it. Because if it sounds like a bookworm, nope, nope, nope. Fifth dimensional consciousness. In the fifth dimension, in this framework, isn't about knowing more spiritual information. It's about embodiment. You gotta feel that shit. That shit gotta be. You gotta Chris Brown that shit. You know what I'm saying? You gotta. I'm telling you. You know about all the chakras, the colors, the stones. But the fifth dimension is about embodiment, right? It's about embodiment. Your internal world begins and becoming less. Your internal world begins becoming less dependent upon external circumstances. You don't stop experiencing difficulty. You stop allowing every difficulty to determine who you are. You don't stop experiencing emotions. You stop giving every emotion authority over you and authority over your actions. You don't stop encountering different people. You still gonna get haters. Like, I don't understand. Everybody ain't gotta love you. Everybody ain't gotta like you. You have to be internal enough that none of this stuff affects you, because you have a whole entire galaxy going on in here. You love yourself. What are you doing? You care about what people think? If people like you? What if you getting all these major breakthroughs? You care about what people say? You're gonna get haters. So, you stop needing every difficult person to understand you. You don't need people. You don't have to explain yourself. Somebody said something about me the other day, and I was like, okay, it doesn't affect me. I'm bulletproof. Okay. You know what I'm saying? That's a completely different state of mind. different state of consciousness. When you're in the fifth dimension, you don't need to win every battle. You too argumentative. You got to win every argument just because you know a little something. That's spiritual ego, or Christian ego, or Islam ego, or whatever you practice ego. That's just the ego. I don't care what religion you in. You ain't the ego is gonna be there. You know what I'm saying? So regardless, regardless, you gotta work on it. You gotta contain the beast, contain the monster. And surprisingly, you okay. You like, all right, cool. Someone disagrees with you, you're okay. Someone leaves, it hurts, but you don't automatically chase them. You begin understanding something. Peace can be more valuable than being understood. Not because you've been passive, because you've become selective about where your energy goes. Number two, your relationship triggers change. A trigger used to mean something is wrong with them. Now, a trigger becomes something is inside of me is going on that I need to figure out what the hell is going on. That's a trigger. That's a shadow. That's your shadow showing itself. Hey, we need to fix this. But you want to, it was you, it was you, it was you. You did it. You did this to me. You. Because when you do that, that's internal magic instead. Instead of immediately projecting outward, you investigate inward. You like a detective. You like motherfucking 007 when it comes to your internal. You know what I'm saying? You moving and grooving. You know what I'm saying? Because you got to ask yourself, when that shadow appears, what did this touch? Fear, abandonment, rejection, insecurity, pride, childhood conditioning. Your mama wasn't right. Your daddy wasn't right. But y'all don't want to hear that. Let's keep going. Maybe there's a boundary that needs to be established. The trigger becomes information, people. And when triggers become information rather than commands, your consciousness has changed. And another thing, was that sign number, was that 4? I believe. Sign number 3, you stop trying to control everything. Control often disguises itself as spirituality. What did I tell you guys in the beginning? Trying to ego. You know what I'm saying? Control disguises itself as spirituality. I need this manifestation. I need this person. I need this opportunity. I need this sign. I need the universe to prove I'm on the right path. Y'all know y'all be doing that too. But eventually, your relationship with uncertainty changes. You still have intentions, you still take action, you still build, but you become capable of saying, this is what I want, but I don't have to destroy my peace trying to force it with your controlling self. You're controlling. Stop. Sign number 4. Your intuition becomes quieter. That's why we do meditation, right? I told y'all, give me 10 minutes. That's all I need. Every day, though. 10 minutes a day. Sit by yourself. Blank thoughts, quiet, light you a candle, light you some incense. People sometimes imagine intuition as a dramatic, supernatural voice, but as your internal world begins to become quieter, intuition may actually become simpler. You overthinking it. It becomes a knowing. You're like, oh, shit, I know. I know, I know, I know. That's the reason why for my breakthrough, I know. It ain't no spewing no knowledge about it. I know. And another thing too, when I got it, it was almost like a flood of information just like came. You know what I'm saying? Like I just knew the answers to stuff before, like when people ask like crazy stuff, and I knew the answers to them. You know, this is the type of stuff I'm talking about right here. You become not all knowing, but you become knowing, a knowing. You have this intuition. You just know. Nobody can tell you. A hesitation, a pull, a sense that something isn't aligned. You catch it all. A feeling that it's time to move. The challenge becomes distinguishing intuition from fear, desire, and protection and projection. Projection. Because a lot of y'all just be projecting, boy. And we need to work on that. That's why inner work matters. If your internal world is constantly screaming, it's difficult to recognize a whisper. Leave that man alone. She ain't right. Y'all ignore it every single time. And the problem is that pride, because you make that decision and then instead of just doing a reset, your ego just can't allow you to just hit the reset button. Yeah, y'all put in 6 months together, but then you realize like, uh-oh, too many red flags. And your inner voice, that whisper, is gonna say, it's time to go. Because you want to stand on something, on your ego, you continue for another 2 years. And guess what? Now you trapped. Y'all living together. Y'all can't financially survive alone because y'all so invested. Now you can't. Now you just have to stay in it. 5 years go by, 10 years go by, and you only stayed in your relationship because you can't function without the other person, or you can't survive financially without the other person, and you're scared to go out there alone and hit the reset button. Shit, I'm playing Mario. I'm hitting the reset button every time I'm. Oh man, damn. I'm a Scorpio, so I'm the king of resets. You know what I'm saying? Man, for real. Number 5, your relationships begin changing. As you change internally, some relationships change with you, others don't. You may become less interested in relationships built entirely around gossip, drama, you know what I'm saying? Complaining, competition, validation, or constantly rescuing each other. Hey man, let me get that dub. Next week, hey man, can I get 40? The other person. And y'all just keep going and y'all just surviving. That doesn't make you spiritually superior, because be careful with that trap, thinking you're 5D while everyone else is low vibrational. I see it. Woo, that's an Instagram problem right there, boy. For real. Everybody low vibrational. You know what I'm saying? It can simply become ego wearing spiritual clothing. Real growth doesn't require looking down on people. Sometimes growth simply means recognizing I don't need to participate in this anymore. 6, you become more present You spend less time fighting yesterday and less time trying to live tomorrow before tomorrow arrives. That was a problem. My mind was always thinking about the future. I could never stop it. I'm like, bro, man, I'm telling you, I had it bad. I had to fix that. Don't worry, you can fix yours too, because I know a lot of y'all always thinking about the past, and that's just as bad. That's just as bad. You know, so you become increasingly capable of asking, what does this moment require from me? Presence becomes spiritual practice. Stay in the moment. Eating, walking, creating, working, listening, breathing, talking to someone you love. You realize spirituality doesn't only happen during meditation. Your life becomes the meditation. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. You better get into this. You better get into it. Give me 10 minutes. 7, you stop dividing yourself. This may be one of the deepest signs. You stop pretending that spirituality means becoming only light. You acknowledge your anger, your jealousy, your fear, your sexuality, your ambition, your grief, your ego, your wounds, your shadow, not because every impulse should be acted upon, but because of what you refuse to acknowledge can control you unconsciously. That's why y'all in them same loops and patterns. That's why you're in the same loops and patterns, man. I'm telling you, what you need to do is integrate, right? Integration says this exists within me. Now, what am I going to do with it? That's maturity, people. Some of y'all is sometimes it's just basic 101. A lot of y'all just need to grow up. Hip hop make you try to make you try to make you young forever, but we all gonna get old. So, you know what I'm saying? Shit, you can know every spiritual term in the world and still avoid yourself. You can talk about frequencies while refusing accountability. You can talk about manifestation while refusing discipline. You can talk about divine timing because you're afraid to take action. You can call someone low vibrational because you don't want to admit they triggered you. That's because that's exactly what's going on. You you can call you can call everything a synchronicity, right? While ignoring obvious consequences. Spiritual vocabulary doesn't automatically equal spiritual development. Your consciousness isn't measured by what you know, it's revealed by how you live. You know what I'm saying? So, on your altar tonight, because I always go over doing, altar work practice, tonight we're going to make the altar a mirror. Place one object on the altar representing the version of yourself you're leaving behind. Then place another object representing the consciousness you're trying to embody. Between those two objects, place a candle. First object represents who I have been. The second represents who I am consciously becoming. The flame represents the awareness transforming one into the other. Sit quietly in the front of it. Don't ask the universe for anything yet. God damn. Can you just be quiet? You always want something. Instead, ask yourself, where am I still allowing the external world to control my internal world? Then what would the highest version of me be doing differently? Don't look for mystical answers. Notice what arises. If you got a journal, which I do prescribe, write it down. I got in my notes. It's called sudden downloads, and I put when I'm sometimes that shit just hit. I got a whole little list of stuff that I'm just like I'll go back and read it and be like, wow, you know, Then choose one physical action you can take tomorrow that represents the new consciousness, because transformation becomes real when consciousness becomes behavior. I always like to go over some journey work you can do to enter into the fifth dimensional self. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself standing before five doors. Behind you are experiences that created the person you are today. You walk toward the first door. It represents fear. It represents fear. You don't destroy it. You acknowledge it and walk through the door. The second door represents attachment. You acknowledge everything you've been afraid to lose and walk through it. The third represents identity, your titles, your reputation, the version of yourself you've been protecting. Walk through it. The fourth represents the seeker, the part of you constantly looking outside of yourself for another answer. Then thank the seeker and then walk through the door. Now you're standing before the fifth door. There is no label. There's only a mirror. Look into it. Look at the person that's staring into it. What is it saying? But like I said, I appreciate you guys tapping in. I love you. I appreciate all the support and the follows and the comments on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I see all of the movement. I see the save videos, the reposts. I appreciate it. Please continue reposting the clips. These will be dropping. This should be dropping today. So just let me know in the comments what type of work are you willing to work on? Right? Until next time, I appreciate you guys for tapping in. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay internal.